There you go.
Welcome back to the Finding Moments podcast. My name is Wong Lam, and today's very special guest. He's been teaching at Sequoia Middle School since 1997, coaching at Edmond North High School since it first opened in 1993. You can do the math. I'll finish the introduction. Coach Larry Tettleton, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Nice seeing you again.
Very great seeing you. Before we get started into this podcast, my wife and I wrote you a little note. Don't read it out loud. This is just for you.
I love it. Love it. I appreciate it. I will hang this up. This is mine. I love it. It's special.
I love it too,
Thank
Coach.
you.
Thank you so much. And also, if you'd like to say a little prayer for this podcast,
I would love it if you don't mind. Lord, I thank you so much for this wonderful day that you've given us. I just thank you for the talent and the Lord, the desire that you've given Wong and Morgan. I just thank you for what they do. And I pray that the words that we share today can reach more than we know. And I pray that everybody that's out there listening is just blessed and can benefit from this interview. And I just thank you so much. It's your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Coach. So do you remember how we actually first started talking?
I did. I was kind of it was kind of embarrassing but funny because I was like, I've never heard a podcast ever. And so one of my good friends was on one of your shows, Nate Gomez. And so I watched his podcast and was like, hey. So I finally tweeted that I had watched my first podcast ever. So
Yeah.
and then you reached out and was like, all right, we'd like to talk to you. And I went, holy cow. I told my wife and she cracked up. She was like, wait a second. The guy that runs the podcast wants to talk to you. I went, that's right.
Yeah. And we met up at Sunnyside Diner.
Sure did.
And had one of the most amazing conversations. It was about a 2.5, 3-hour conversation.
Yeah.
And it was just great. And then this friendship is just blossoming into keeping track with or in touch with you, tracking to see what you're doing with the kids you're teaching. How's your semester going so far?
Great. It's going great. I mean, I teach PE. I tell everybody I teach honors PE. But, it's fun. The kids are great. I teach 6th through 8th graders. And so, and right now we're in my favorite time of season. Wrestling's fixing to start. So we're doing a wrestling unit. But it's, and football season's right. I coach football too, so I can recruit for wrestling.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm right in the middle of that, and it's so I love it. So it's going really good.
I love it. How's your wife doing?
My wife is awesome. It's my boss, and she's actually working today. She works at Scott Savage Prosthetics and Research, and she loves it. So she's my rock.
Yeah,
I promise you.
That's awesome. And how are you doing today?
Man, I'm here. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
But I'm here to have fun and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, it's the first for me.
Never I know. I know. I remember you tweeting about that, and so I was like, "Well, let's get you on to have a first recording of a podcast with your coach."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. How does a coach, teacher, husband like yourself enjoy life? Because you have many things going throughout the day, and all these kids, students you're responsible for?
That's a good question. First off, I try to not take a lot of that home. My wife, I will say this, I've got the most supportive wife. She comes to almost all of my events, whether it's a football game or wrestling match, and I tell her sometimes, I'm not sure I even want to go to it, so I can't believe you're coming. But just I've watched a lot of TV. I also I love music and play some golf, and then I've picked up playing the harmonica 3 years ago, and so I do a lot of that and just hang loose. But I try to keep it separated, work and play, and so. But like I tell the kids, when it's time to work, we work hard. When it's time to play, we play hard. So
I love it.
Yeah.
So how hard do you play the harmonica?
I bought it, like I said, 3 years ago. I bought my first one in Memphis and drove my wife crazy. And I can play a few songs here and there now.
Okay,
So, but it's good.
that's
It's good.
awesome.
Just fake it. I don't even know how to read music. So,
Well, me neither.
so
So I don't know if you brought a harmonica. You can fake it because I'm not going to be able to tell. Maybe some of our listeners are like, I don't know. They'll call you the carpet. But if you brought your harmonica, let's hear a song or two.
Okay. So I did bring a harmonica. My wife actually brought me a whole case.
Oh, that's what the case is. Okay.
She bought me a case of harmonicas, but so I've learned.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
There's a slew of them in there.
there's like 7 or 8 of them, and I did
Wow.
not realize that harmonicas had different keys. But I know if you're, everybody that thinks of music and thinks harmonica thinks very first thing is Piano Man. With
Oh
Billy
yeah,
Joel. So
yeah.
it's, you just. And go from there.
Wow.
So I've done that. I've done even classical music. You know,
What like what type? Well, I mean, I know type is classical, but
what
like
would you
artists.
think classical?
I'm thinking Beethoven, Bach.
So yeah, stuff like that. So
Wow.
and I do
That's
blues stuff like
awesome.
that. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I just
Yeah.
pick it up and play it by ear, and that's how I've learned every song.
Man.
So like I said, I fake it. So
You fake it well, coach.
so been doing that for 30 years now.
What about Tom Petty?
Oh yeah, Tom Petty. So you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can do that.
I
You
like
know,
it.
you can do the old. On a day lamb was born, there's all gathered round. Yeah, So you
Yeah.
got that bad to the bone, stuff like that. So just pick up stuff like that. I play
Oh
it all the time
man.
for the kids, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" So
Wow.
anyway, it's fun. It's fun.
Married, got kids, you coach kids, lots of students. You've been doing it since for about 23 years now, at least
Yes.
teaching, and then coaching for around 26 years. I've done the math, by the way. So just in case our
Well,
listeners didn't do the math, I did the math for them. And then also, you are state champion coach junior high wrestling
yeah,
a few times.
yeah.
Then you've been inducted into the Hall of Fame, Wrestling Hall of Fame here in Oklahoma.
Right.
How do you like
You
just
know,
process that?
I was truly blessed. And as far as the 93 and the 97, starting when I student taught, I actually student taught at Sequoia
Hmm.
in 93. And so I was a GA, a grad assistant,
Wow.
when North opened up. I was actually at UCO 3 years prior, and I was a manager / assistant coach there. We won a national championship there, Division II. And then the following year is when I started at North with a guy named Rick Bolenbach, who ironically is being inducted this year for a lifetime service achievement.
Wow.
And so I started with him, and it was ugly. We were we were 1-8, and it was a very learning year. And so to start in 1993, and then to think that in 2013, 20 years later, we actually won the state championship in 6A.
Wow.
And it was and so in junior high, I've always, and I will tell people this, and I've always told people this, I've always been blessed with great wrestlers. I
Hmm.
mean, if you can imagine coaching basketball, if you were handed a team with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson, it's not hard to go coach that.
Yeah.
And that's basically I had a bunch of good wrestlers that came through. It seemed like just about the right time, but
Hmm.
so. But I mean, it was good and it was fun, and so to just think that I never played sports when I was a kid, um, because my mom wouldn't let me,
Yeah.
and that was another deal that maybe we'll get in later. But so I was I was I never had any success on the mat or on the football field like that. So people look at me and they're like, "Why is this guy even coaching?" But I was always blessed to be around
Hmm.
good programs and great coaches who took their time and taught me and just
Yeah.
took me under their wing. So
Yeah.
that's how it happened. I was
Yeah.
really lucky.
Well, yeah, I would say fortunate as well. But you talked about Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Those are three great NBA legends. And if you had them, you would expect, or you would think you would win based on past stats. However, I feel like it takes a special human being to manage and actually coach that type of talent.
That's true. I mean, the one thing that uh that I've had people point out is that, you know, even though you may have had all this talent, like you said, you had to manage it. You had to make sure they were down to weight,
Hmm.
uh, make sure they were motivated. Because I know that there's a lot of teams that have great talent that all they do is fight and argue, and they end up never doing
Yeah,
any good.
that's right.
So just keeping guys focused and on task. Um, and I was just like I said, I was fortunate to be taught by some of the best guys that I've ever been around. I mean,
Yeah.
my college coach was the second all-time winningest coach in NCAA history. He
Wow.
won 12 national championships. So to take that into when I was my 3 years there at UCO and then going to North and helping that out, taking that knowledge and what he taught me and
Hmm.
what he showed us, um, it just carried over in there. And then I tried to take that down to junior high a little bit, and I've been pretty good and blessed, So it's been
Yeah.
awesome. It's been
Yeah.
awesome. So it's really nothing I did; it's all they did. But you know, it's fun to be a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. You're a huge part of it.
So
They're right, and they're gonna remember that for the rest of their lives
yeah,
and their families too. So that's really super special, I think.
yeah.
Yeah. And then you got inducted into the Hall of Fame here in Oklahoma for the in wrestling, correct?
Well, actually, yeah. It was, so here's what happens: the National Wrestling Hall of Fame is in Stillwater,
Okay.
and in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, they have each state has its own chapter, and they have different awards. They have lifetime achievement, service achievement awards. They have an outstanding American award, and then they have Medal of Courage. And so each year they nominate up to 7 people, and so 5 lifetime service awards, an outstanding American, and then a Medal of Courage. And I received the Medal of Courage in 2018. I was nominated, ironically, by my junior high coach,
Wow.
and I was like, wow. So that was a huge honor.
Hmm.
So that was a pretty humbling experience.
Yeah.
So,
Did you give a speech? Was the likes of John Smith? Was he
yeah,
there?
John Smith was there. There's a lot of talent in that. Kendall Cross, who was a
Hmm.
'96 Olympic medalist,
Yep.
and then there's multiple national champions in NAIA and NCAA 2 schools and some Division 1 schools, and so it was funny because here I am. I've never even won a match. I've wrestled 7 matches in my life, and I'm 0 for 7. I've only got pinned in 5 though, so that was good. But but I'm thinking, here I am, a guy that's never won a match, giving a speech to all these champs, and it's humbling. It really
I'm
is. It
sure.
was very humbling, and it
Yeah.
was a big honor. So
Yeah. After meeting you, meeting Coach Schneider, Coach Gomez, Coach Rosen, and then talking with Paxton, all wrestling family, very tight, close knit. I feel like I've missed out. I should have wrestled.
There you go.
I should have wrestled, but now I'm talking to all these wrestlers with great mental strength. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest phrases. What's your mental strength like?
I think you're right. As far as wrestling, I think is a brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And if I walk down the street and I see somebody with a wrestling shirt on, I know. I know what that guy's been through in practice.
Mm-hmm.
I know his mindset. He's got to be self-disciplined, self-motivated. He works hard, and even if he's done and not wrestling, he's still. I think this guy knows what it's like, and he's experienced, and you just have an automatic respect for that person. I mean, and I'm not saying football's not as tough, but I played football 1 year and I stood on the sideline and never did anything.
Yeah.
The thing is, even if you're not a starter in wrestling, you got to go out there and still work out with the guys that are and get beat on every day. You're
Mm-hmm.
bleeding, you're sweating, you're running with them, even though you're not getting any glory,
Yeah.
you're still doing it with them. So you're doing the
Yeah.
same thing. And a lot of times, those guys that are the JV guys, or like I was actually pushing that starter to keep him from mentally breaking.
Wow.
I'm like, you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a different mindset with a wrestler that if I've been through a wrestling practice or wrestling match, there's nothing that's too tough for me.
Yeah.
I can beat it. If anything, I'm going to die trying.
Yeah.
So, and then, um, so a lot of that was goal setting, set a lot of goals, you know, I mean, even now on my 50th birthday, I set a goal of doing 10,000 push-ups in a year. And so my birthday is May 16th.
Wow.
And so I started, and in September 17th, I had 10,000.
Whoa.
And I was like, you know what? Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing 38,000 that year. It was just because I set a goal, and I was like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to achieve it.
That's awesome.
So, a lot of people just, I mean, wrestlers can't, don't get me wrong, they do feel sorry for themselves, but
Yeah.
pushing through that, having the self-discipline and motivation to do it, I learned that all from wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to teach that to my kids too.
That's awesome.
So,
I feel like that's a really good correlation into life experience too. The mental toughness side, getting into whether it's corporate world or starting up your own job, being a coach, teacher, you gotta have some serious mental strength to power through every day with at least 30 different personalities in any given hour as a teacher.
Well, that's, we tease each other because you almost need a psychology degree too to coach. So you got so many different personalities, and but yeah, it's tough to be able to talk and motivate and understand all the different people that coming from different places. And I'll just say this: there's a lot of wrestling coaches the kids look up to and they respect because they have the credentials.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a state champ, national champ. If anything, they can beat them. I can't beat my coach. We had a kid that wrestled for us who was a very good wrestler named Tion Ware, and he could never beat our head coach, Rick Bolenbach. And I'll never forget one day, his junior year, I'm at the other end of the room wrestling the big guys. He was about a 135 pounder, and I hear him scream. I'm like, yeah. And I turned around, and he had finally put Coach Bolenbach on his back for the first time ever.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah. And so, but, so anyway, to put, I don't have those credentials. I was never. So the thing is, but I've been around people and successful wrestlers that have battled through the same thing that anybody a JV kid or anybody has gone through, and I can relate to them. And so that's where I actually, how can I say this? I'm a little more open
Yeah.
with my kids and honest, and I think they respect that too,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And it comes in same with the classroom. You know, kids are like, "We don't understand." I'm like, "Try me, I may." You know,
Hmm.
I've been through a lot more experiences than you think.
Yeah.
I'm not just this former athlete that fell into this job. I had to work for it, and uh, trust me, I've probably been through some of the same stuff that you've been through, and are experiencing or have experienced.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Speaking of some of your experiences, what's a experience like a defining moment for you that you went through in life that's kind of helped shape or molded you to today?
um,
Probably a few of them if you want to
well, I
share
mean,
them.
there is. You know, the very first thing that when I was born, I have a twin sister. There's 8 kids in my family,
Wow.
and and so uh, I have a twin sister. Her name's Paula, and she came out first, and I was classified as cerebral palsy. I came out second. So actually, the doctors told my mom and dad that I probably wouldn't live through the night. Off the first, they were like, "Well, we'll be like, we'll monitor him,"
Wow.
kind of giving the worst case scenario, you know. And so then they were like, "Okay, well, if he does live, he'll be, paralyzed," because I was paralyzed from the right side at birth.
Mm.
Now, I tell the kids, so for you kids that are watching, I really wasn't injured in the war. I was, I tell them all kinds of stuff. Um, but anyway, so I actually was paralyzed at birth on the right side. And so um, growing up, I had to figure out how to do stuff with one hand, you
Mm.
know. And so that's one reason why my mom and dad didn't let me play sports, is because they were worried about me breaking my good arm.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not going to feed you, spoon feed you. But here's the thing, is that all my brothers and sisters got to play. And I was like, well, that's not fair. So they told me we just couldn't afford it.
Mm.
But uh, I've got 2 brothers, my brothers Ray and Steve, and they're more like Frank and Jesse James. They were they were just wild men, but they would not let. So mom, of course, I'm gonna be a mama's boy,
Yeah.
why? So anytime that mom was out of earshot, they would just abuse me like, "Get up, you little punk, you're not hurt," stuff like that. And so they expected me to live my life like, quote, normal people do.
Mm.
You don't need those training wheels on your bike. Get rid of those training wheels. And so they made me learn how to ride a bicycle.
Wow.
Matter of fact, this is a funny experience. The first time I ever learned how to water ski, me and my brother Ray went to the lake up in Stillwater, Carl Blackwell, and he said, "You're not getting in the boat till you get up on skis." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So for 2 hours, I was trying to get up, trying to get up. When I finally got up on my skis, my right ski fell off. So I just put my right foot behind my left foot and slalomed for about 600 yards or whatever, and finally crashed. And he came back by and he's like, "That was awesome, Larry." He goes, "Now you got to get up on one." I go, "Dude, just get me in the boat. I'm dying."
Yeah.
But he wouldn't let me in the boat until my forearms were like just cramping up. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." But now that I look back on that, they taught me feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to get you anything.
Mm.
And so I had to work, and I appreciated what I was doing afterwards. And here's the thing: since I was taught that, I I just assumed that all kids were like that had disabilities or whatever. And so when I'm going in school and they're like picking teams for basketball teams, I'm like, "Hey, I'm here," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Well, you can't play." I'm like, "Yeah, I can. Watch." So, and I had a good attitude about it.
Yeah.
Wasn't poor pitiful me. And so taking that into when I tried to play football, horrible, horrible at it. I got to play 6 seconds. So my 8th grade year, I went out and my junior high coach was named Steve Dunlap, and I said, "Man, I'm too far behind on technology or terminology and stuff, and I just don't understand it." And so he goes, "Well, be manager." And I said, "Okay." So I was manager. And then after football season, he said, "Why don't you be my wrestling manager?" And I said, "What do they do?" And he goes, "Mop mats, help me keep score at the duels and so forth." I'm like, "Sure." So I came in, and what I didn't know was that, like, we would partner up to wrestle matches. Somebody would raise their hand and go, "Hey, I don't have a partner." He'd be like, "Larry, go wrestle that guy." Okay. Well, here's the thing. It didn't matter if he was heavyweight or 75 pounds. I'm going to wrestle this guy. So I was
Right.
getting killed, but I was still wrestling. And I learned more from just watching these guys. And so what's ironic about the whole thing is that, like, I would be sitting in a corner at a tournament with my coach keeping score,
Mm.
and somebody would come up 2 mats down, and he'd be like, "Hey, go coach them until I get done with this kid." And so I was coaching in 8th grade,
Wow.
started coaching, and then uh, David James, who's the head coach at UCO for 34 years, and he said, "Hey, man, how would you like to come help us?" And I was like, "You bet. That'd be an honor." And so
Wow.
I got to do, that's what I'm saying. It just, it's weird how God puts people in your life
Mm.
to just bless you and help you. And that's what it's been like, you know, my whole life. But yeah, that's just one of the main handy or tribulations that I've been through,
Mhm.
but you had to overcome. So,
Yeah.
you know, so
Wow. So you're born with a classified cerebral palsy. Didn't think you were going to make it through the night.
right,
Paralyzed on your
right.
right arm, right leg too.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then learn how to ski slalom on by chance, and
Yeah.
your brothers are pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the thing is, so my dad, like I said, with a family of 8 kids, 7 kids. Um, so my dad really put a lot of stock in work. You guys need to work. And so, man, we worked. And I will say that our family is some of the hardest working people I've ever met.
Mhm.
Um, but I can even remember my dad telling me between my sophomore and freshman year, he's like, "Son, you got to really think about your future." He goes, "Because sports ain't gonna put food on the table for you." Because I was paralyzed and I
Right.
couldn't, and you're a manager. What's that gonna? There's no offer for a manager scholarship.
Yeah.
And so it's ironic. So I'm like, here I am coaching. Um, but um, you know, I did that. I was between my junior and senior year, actually my sophomore and junior year. Um, I one of the other things I did, and tribulations I learned was and powered through, was that I left for school one morning. I came back and my dad was off. My dad was a truck driver for Kane's Coffee, and I learned the importance of telling somebody that you love them. And here's how, because I'll never forget. It was January 10th. It was cold, 1984. My truck wouldn't start, and I was like, tried to get it started and battered it down. So I called my friend to come pick me up. And my dad's bedroom was by where my truck was parked, and he peeked his head out the door and he goes, "Hey, is your truck broke down?" I wanted to say, "Duh," you know. So I go, "Yes," and he said, "Hey, we'll work on it when you get home from practice." And I was like, "Whatever." I was just frustrated with that, and it's like whatever. So I walked out the door, and at 11 o'clock, I got a note. I was supposed to go up to the office. I went to the office at school, and the financial secretary said, "Hey, I need you. I need to take you to the hospital." "For what?" She goes, "Your dad's had a heart attack." I said, "Okay." So I went up there, and he passed away on the table. He had another massive heart attack. So the last thing I ever said to my dad was, whatever. And that's really hard. I regret that. I live with that regret. And so I really try to instill that in my students is that, hey, you don't understand. You have no idea. Even if your mom has a fight with you because you didn't pick up your room and you're fighting on the way to school and you get out of school and you slam the door or I hate you, whatever, that could be the last time you ever see that person.
Mm.
So before you get out, you need to let people know how you feel about them all the time so you never regret it. And so what's funny is that I make my students, if they have to use my phone in my office, they have to say three things. I'm so sick of people. Kids, listen to me. Hate it when they call and they're like, "Hey, I'm done with practice. Come pick me up." Like, you talk to your mom like that? Like, yeah. I'm like, no, no, no. You have to say, please come pick me up. Thank you. And then before you hang up, you have to say, I love you. And they're like, well, it wasn't my mom, it's my sister. Doesn't matter. You love her too. As much as she ticks you off, say, I love you.
Yeah.
So if they don't, it's 20 push-ups for everyone they don't say. So when I work the bus duty, crosswalk duty, kids are getting out of the car. I'm like, don't forget to say I love you. And what's really funny is that parents will stick around for that. No matter how late they are for work, they'll wait for 10 seconds, 15 seconds for the kid to go, okay, I love you, mom. You know, they'll stick around for that. So
Yeah.
it's worth it. So that's one of the good things I learned. But that's one way and I implement that into my coaching and teaching. So as much as I can. So but yeah, there's been some challenges. I mean, my my mom died when I was 32. She had brain cancer. Unironically, that was the year that I won uh, the junior high state championship. So I gave her my plaque,
Mm.
and it was really cool. So, but yeah, I've been blessed through some stuff. But the thing is, all the stuff I've learned from wrestling and from my family growing up that didn't allow me to get babied or feel sorry for myself, that really helped me get through these times. So there's been a lot of stuff, but I try to I try to show that to my wrestling team and my different students as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know,
I remember when we had that conversation at the first time I met you, and I immediately after I left, I called my wife and I told her how amazing the conversation was, an amazing person that you are. And I was like, man, this we intentionally try to bring on guests to share stories, and it was definitely intentional having you on because the message that you send to just I think anyone that you come across, call it the great energy exchange. You have great energy, very positive energy. And I
thank you,
definitely appreciate that about you,
thank you,
Coach.
thank you.
You talked earlier in the podcast about excellence, and you also mentioned about this is what my kids got to do to be focused for their day. How does a coach like you, what kind of habits do you have to focus on days?
every morning, every morning, I get up. I normally get up around 5, and I read my Bible every day, uh, and try to read. I've read through the New Testament. I'm trying to read through the Old Testament now, and uh, I have to admit some of the parts of the Old Testament's a little rough to get through.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's you know, I get stuff from there, and so I just being able to have my quiet time and get with God. Sometimes He talks to me. I never knew that. When people are always like, "Yeah, God talked to him," like, sure, whatever, you know. Um, but I understand now that you know um, God does talk to people, maybe not audibly, but he leads you to certain things, you
Mhm.
know. Uh, Matter of fact, I'll just I'll share something that so like this is when you said what was your defining moment. So one of the things that I've been through that was just some of my childhood stuff. Like um, I was married in 1992, and I have, my wife's name was Candace, and we had a son named Seth, and Seth is an awesome kid. And anyway, again, another one of those days that will just always be etched in my mind. Um, November 17th, 1994. I got up 5 o'clock, read my Bible, got on the road, went to school, and I get a call about 9 o'clock. Actually, my vice principal came to my classroom and got me out. I wasn't teaching then. I was just a student. I was a teacher's assistant.
Mm.
Bolenback, the guy I coached with, was with the administrator, and they said, "Hey, we need you to come with us." And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Your wife's been raped at your house." And I went, wait a second. Somebody broke in my house and raped my wife. And they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Where is she at?" And they were like, "She's at Logan Medical Center." I went up there and I I couldn't believe it. And that was one of those deals I just thought, man, I'll do anything I can to help. Uh, and it really, I mean, it scarred her physically, mentally. Um, and it became very difficult. Matter of fact, uh, I just couldn't understand why it happened to me and her, you know. Ironically, and they never caught the guy. They caught him 12 years later. And it was one of the guys I used to work with at another job. But she became an alcoholic of that. I didn't know this. And she ended up passing away. Uh, we had gotten divorced because her alcoholism had gotten so bad. But I got Seth, and she chose that path. And anyway, I was having a hard time. I was by myself raising a son, and you know, on the luxurious life of a teacher, I was struggling with money, and I'm just like, man, what, God, what are you trying to teach me? And so I just happened to be reading in the Bible that day, and I want to read it's Second Corinthians, 12, and it's Paul, the apostle. He's talking about. Um, it just says because of the extravagance of this revelation, he's talking about this revelation he had from God. He said, and so I wouldn't get a big head. I was given the gift of a handicap to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. Satan's angel did his best to get me down. What he in fact did was push me to my knees. No danger then of walking around high and mighty. At first, I didn't think of it as a gift and begged God to remove it 3 times. I did that. And then he told me, my grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strength, moving in on my weakness. Now I take limitations in stride, and with good cheer. These limitations that cut me down to size, abuse, accidents, oppositions, bad breaks, I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. So when I read that, I thought, all these bad things that happened to me, the paralysis, the bad breaks I'm getting with my parents passing away, never going to see my grandkids, their grandkids. My wife divorced me. She passed away. I was like, man, I'm living, you know, pretty much a life of poverty with my son. I don't say poverty, but I sure wasn't living the good life, I thought. And that's one of those times that he didn't audibly speak. He's just like, hey, get a
Mm,
clue. You're blessed. You have a son, you have a job, you have a home. What are you griping about? I was like,
mm,
wow, okay, I get it,
mm.
God. I get it. So
Wow.
that's what I preach to my kids is that, no matter what you've gone through, God's still with you. You're blessed. He'll take care of you, you know, and He'll surround you with the right people
Mhm.
if you'll be open to them. And if you believe in Him and He'll help you. All you gotta do is accept it. And
Mm,
that's the hardest part is accepting it, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah.
So
Wow. That's deep. That's.
yeah. Well, it kind of punched me in the mouth. And I was like, okay, I got
Mm,
you, you know. So
mhm.
I do a little deal. I wish I'd brought some paper. Um, so in my football team, I do a deal
I have
where,
some paper.
okay. So what I do is I take two sheets of paper and they're both clear, and no marks. And I say, okay. And I tell the kids that I tell them when I was born, I was paralyzed and I make this big fat crease. And I'm like, look, this paper looks different than the other. I've got the one that's sitting here. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then, you know, I had seizures and I was different from other kids. Nobody wanted to play with me because I was different. They didn't want to pick me on their team. When I got in high school, girls didn't want to date me because I was different, you know. And I said, then when my dad passed away, that was another big crease in my life. It was really hard. I said, then I, got married and my wife was raped. I said, that's huge. And I make another big crease. And I'm saying all the time, and I've got this other person, a smaller kid, like a kicker,
Yeah.
that's holding this piece of paper. I'm like, you hold this piece of paper. And he's like, okay. And so I'm folding this up and I'm like, then I got divorced. And I said, that was another huge crease in my life. I said, then my ex-wife died. So now my son doesn't have a mom. I said, that looks pretty horrible. I said, this piece of paper looks really small and weak. And I give it to a big, strong lineman. I go, now tear that in half with your hands. And he's like, can't do it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, because the weaker you become, the stronger you are.
Ooh.
And then I have the kicker rip the one that looks clean and easy,
Yeah.
no problems.
Yeah.
He just tears it in half. I said, but this is the one that's really strong because it's gone through all the different trials and tribulations. And I said, in James 1, in verse 2, it says, consider it pure joy to go through all the trials and tribulations that you have. Consider it pure joy
Mm.
because that's how you gain perseverance and perfection in your life. And so that's what I show the kids. And I've had more people come back than I thought and go, Coach, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that. So
Wow.
that's just something and he taught me that morning. There, I was like, you know what? This is how I can show kids. And I've had a lot of people, and Andy Schneider, who's the head coach at Edmond North, is also the leader of the FCA chapter there at Edmond North. And he invited me to speak one time, and I showed that. I gave my testimony and used that, and I had a pretty good I don't know what you response, I guess is what you'd call it. There's a lot of people that, most kids dash out there and get to their next thing, but I had a lot of people stop and tell me, thank you, really appreciate it. I had a lot of hugs that night. A lot of people said, I love you,
Yeah.
so it means a lot. It means a lot. So
Wow.
I think God just uses me a tool. That's what I am. I'm just a tool in his you know work set.
Yeah.
So all of us are.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of God and Coach Schneider, who are three people you wish you could just communicate with, talk to on the phone, or meet in person if you didn't have any social media?
oh wow, man. Yeah. You know, Schneider's very. He's one of my good friends and mentors. You know, the thing is, people think a mentor's got to be young or older, but that's not
Mm.
really true. I've learned a lot from that guy. You know, um, and so obviously him. Um, gosh, that's my dad taught me a lot. Um, he was very wise. Um, I had a so my dad would be one very. I kind of go back to the words he's always taught me. Um, you know, and and then I've got a real good friend who like I said, when I was in junior high, our head coach took me under his wing and basically just encouraged me, developed me, and said, and actually just believed in me and said, "You can do this. You know, you can be a manager." And he's like, "You can be a coach if that's what you want to do." And I also had another guy that this is the old athletic director at Edmond, where I went to school. I went to Edmond Memorial because it was the only school then. When my dad died at 16, my mom was the principal secretary, and the athletic director had an office behind her office. And so he offered me a job. Well, anybody that knows me, and you can ask anybody, whatever I touch, I break. I'm excellent at it. So if you need some new equipment, just let me touch it. I'll break it and get insurance for it. But anyway, I went to work for him. And I was horrible. I thought, man, he's going to fire me, and he didn't. He just kept saying, I even tried to quit one time. I said, I'm
Mm.
done. I'm tired of messing up your stuff. You're just doing this because of my mom. You're just helping my mom out. And he was like, okay, be over at this school tomorrow at 7. I'm like, I understand I quit. Not quitting for the day. I'm quitting for
Done.
good.
Yeah.
Done. He's like, okay. He goes, be there at 7. I'm like, you don't get it. I
Yeah.
just kept telling him. And so I went home early because I quit during the day. I went home. This is in the summertime. My mom goes, what are you doing home? I was like, I quit. I said, I know he just hired you because of you. He hired me just because of you. And I said, I screwed everything up. I said, I'm just a mess up. I said, I'm quitting. And she goes, you better go back there and get your job.
Mm.
And so I went back. He was gone. And I thought, great. So she goes, do you know where he's going to be tomorrow? I said, yeah, she told me to meet at 7 o'clock at this school. So she goes, you better be there. So I walked back at 7 o'clock. We were putting some dirt on an infield, a baseball field. I walked up. He handed me the shovel. Didn't say anything like, told you so, or anything like that. Just, hey, I need this done, this done, this
Yeah.
done. But at the same time, he also was a great mentor for me. And,
Mm.
he would tell me, like, there's nothing you can't do. You got to keep working. And um, I was like, I was going to join the Navy. I wanted to join the Navy when I got out of high school. And he's Marine recruiters and stuff were like, you can't even use your right hand. You can't be in the Navy. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And he goes, you're going to college. And I said, two things. One, I'm not smart enough. Two, you got to have money. And he goes, so you don't have to have money. He goes, you have a disability. And I go, I don't like that. He goes, well, you know what? Believe it or not, you do. Use it to your advantage. So I went up to vocational rehabilitative services and I was like, I was going to try to get some money. And they go, how much? They were like, do you plan on staying on campus? And I went, no, I doubt it. Why? And they were like, because we're going to pay for your housing too.
Yeah.
So my whole college was paid for
Wow.
because of my disability. I almost got in a fight with him because there was a guy that went to school. I know we're almost done, but Brett Adams was a great athlete in Edmond. He graduated in '87, and this is Steve Dunlap, my junior high coach, trained him in the summertime. So on Wednesdays, he would take him up to the track at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they would run 50 timed 40-yard dashes.
50.
50.
Wow.
And he would get a 25-second rest in between each one of them. And then after 25, he would get 5-minute rest. So Dunlap called me one day. He goes, "Hey, I need your help." I'm like, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" And he goes, I want you to race Brett. Okay, whatever. So basically what they did is they used me as a rabbit. He gave me a 10-yard head start. And if Brett couldn't beat me, then that one didn't count.
Oh my gosh.
So here I am running with him. I was running 30-yard sprints instead of 40 yards.
Yeah.
And Coach Straw, who was the athletic director, saw me running. And I'm getting mad because I'm thinking, I've got a 10-yard head start and I still can't beat this guy. So after I got done, I'm walking off the track and I ran into Coach Straw. He was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, I'm horrible. I stink. He goes, "Son," he goes, "you're never going to beat that kid." And that made me mad. I was like, "What do you mean I'm never going to beat that kid?" And he goes, "Larry, God made you different." He goes, "You're handicapped." He goes, "Whether you want to admit that or not, you are." He goes, "I know you don't see it." He goes, "And people don't see it either." He goes, "But," he goes, "you are." He goes, "And that guy is a star athlete. You're never going to beat him." And I was like, I was mad. I wanted to hit him really bad. And he goes, "I know it ticks you off. You think I'm a big jerk." He goes, "But fact's a fact." And that's when he's like, "But that doesn't have to define you. You can be whatever you want to be, but still you have to do it differently than other people."
Yeah.
And I went, "Gotcha." You know, so that's kind of so Joe Straw is another guy that would really, and I call him to this day, and he tells me to hug my wife and tell her I love her and hug my kids, and he's a super guy. So I wouldn't be here without him either.
That's awesome.
I mean, he's the kind of guy that I'll never forget. I had my first date when I was working for him.
Yeah.
And of course, I work with a bunch of high school guys. Like, "Hey, it's what you need to do," and stuff. So after we get off work, he pulls me to the side and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to tell you something." I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "If you try to kiss this girl tonight, I'm going to hit you in the mouth." "What?" And he goes, "You treat her like a gentleman." And I went, "Okay." So I was like, "I understand."
Yeah.
So stuff like that, I was like, all right. So he kind of took over my dad.
Yeah.
Left off. So he taught me a lot too.
Wow.
So
that's phenomenal.
I've been blessed with a lot of good mentors.
Yeah.
So
man, that's powerful stuff. Your stories are so amazing and so in depth, and there's so much to learn from for listeners and our viewers and myself included. What's a piece of advice you would give your younger self?
wow. I go back now and stuff that I tell my athletes this. On the side view mirror of your car, it says objects appear bigger than they really are. But I think in life, it's just the opposite. Things look a whole lot worse than they really are. And you think about when you get a cut and you're bleeding, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I cut my finger off." But then by the time you clean it up, it's a gash. It's maybe this big. And you're like, a Band-Aid can fix it, Well, it's the same thing. Originally, it looks really bad. There's no hope, whatever. If I, now at 52 could go back and tell a 17-year-old kid who was scared to death of, everything, is that don't be scared of anything, because God's got your back and everything's going to work out. Everything's going to work out, and don't be afraid. And kids today, I sit there and think, man, if I only had the guts, and if I knew now, or knew then what I know now, you know, I would have done this. I would have tried this. I would have asked this girl out or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
just whatever.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I missed out on because I was too scared
Yeah.
of what happened, and I thought, well, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And things happen that you can't. Just like I said, I didn't think I'd go to college, but God arranged it.
Yep.
Hey, here's the deal: I'm going to pay your college, and you're going to work for the UCO wrestling team. So I've got you covered. Just go do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's what I tell myself is don't be afraid, don't fear. Just go do it.
I love it.
Wow.
How does Coach Tettleton want to be remembered?
Wow. I think when people think of Larry Tettleton, as far as an athlete, somebody that believed in him, whether they were a star or not, because I try to do that. I don't just, there are some coaches that only care about their star athletes.
Yeah.
And everybody else is kind of off in the corner doing their own thing. I try to let this kid that is the third string 150 pounder, you're just as important as this guy right here.
Yeah.
Because I was that guy.
Right.
So I want them to know that I cared for all of them. I believed in all of them, and that I love them, and they can love me, and I'll be honest and truthful. I think that's what I want them to remember, is that he was an honest guy, loyal guy, and he truly loved them.
Yeah.
And as far as the other coaches, they know that. I guess here's what I read here, is that all your accomplishments mean nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're huge. I appreciate all the honors that have been bestowed on me, but it's nothing compared to what I hope to get one day, and that I never want to get, like I told you when we ate, being in the Hall of Fame and winning a championship, it does. It kind of starts going to your head until the 7th grade 190 pounder takes advantage of your weakness and throws you on your back and pins you, and you're like, I just got pinned by a 7th grader. So that kind of keeps me humble.
I like it.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So it's like, I never want to lose that humility of, I'm a better coach than you, or I'm a better person. That's baloney. So even, a young coach that has not very much experience, whatever, and I'm always willing to help them too.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to remember as, is a guy that cares and loves people and that is loyal and humble.
I love it. And we love you too, Coach. So here's a gift from my wife and I.
Oh, wow.
To you.
Wow.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay. I love it.
High quality material for a high quality man.
Yes. My own defining moment shirt. Podcast. I love it. I will wear this with pride. And yes, I can actually say I know what a podcast is now. Oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. And there's something else in here.
Oh, wow.
Well. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, love it. Love it. And I'm a big coffee drinker.
Yeah.
Coach T, baby. I love it. That's what I tell the kids. Like, sweet tea. It's me. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
I remember, I know you like to drink coffee, and I remember the server talking about something, and you're like, hey, tell him Coach T. You remember Coach T? So we wanted to get you a unique mug. It said just Coach T.
That's awesome.
We may never wrestle for you. You never have taught us, but you're teaching us right now.
You are awesome. You're just as much. I love both of you. I know that. Thank you guys. That's awesome.
2 more questions. First one, how do the listeners and viewers get in touch with you? No cell numbers unless you want to give it out, but that's
Well, it's on my bath. It's a lot of bathroom walls in my phone. No, I'm just kidding. No, no. They can get hold of me at my email, and this is my home email, is larrytettleton@yahoo.com, and or they can call me at school. My number is 405-726-5827, and that's so. I guarantee it. Just call somebody in Edmond, let them know you're looking for Coach T, and they'll find me.
right on.
That's one reason. That's one way you can find it. So,
Coach Tettleton, do you approve this podcast?
I approve this podcast. I do. This is awesome. This is awesome. I love it.
Thank you so much, Coach. My name is Wong Lam, and I definitely approve this podcast.
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate you so much.
I love you, man.
Love you, man.
You're awesome.